This is an update from the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs, otherwise known as DCBA. Thank you for the opportunity to share an update from DCBA. We're here to provide some important updates and help residents recover and rebuild after the wildfires. Our goal is to ensure that consumers and tenants are protected and have access to the resources that they need. We had emergency eviction protections in place for qualified income eligible tenants who were facing evictions for non-payment of rent due to fire-related impacts. Those protections did expire on July 31st of this year, 2025. Under those protections, qualified tenants were required to notify their landlord in writing within 7 days of rent being due each month that they were financially impacted by the wildfires and that they would be unable to pay their rent for those designated months. This process is also known as self-attestation or self-certification. So these emergency protections have expired, as I mentioned. What does that mean exactly? Well, that means that qualified tenants must resume making rent payments as normal to avoid being evicted for non-payment of rent. The county no longer has these emergency eviction protections in place for tenants who continue to experience financial hardship and are unable to pay for the months of August and the following months since. This resolution or eviction protection does not waive rent or was not meant to waive rent. Tenants are required to pay back the past due amounts due to their landlords, and tenants are encouraged to establish a repayment plan. DCBA does offer free mediation services should landlords or tenants wish to negotiate repayment terms. Qualified tenants have 12 months to repay past due rent as of July 31st, 2025. Past due rent cannot include late fees, interest, or other charges incurred during that protection period. Permanent tenant protections do remain in place for unincorporated LA County and incorporated cities that offer such protections as well. The best bet is to call DCBA's Tenant Protections Hotline. That's open from 8 a.m. until 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. That number is 1-800-593-8222. While the eviction protections do offer an affirmative defense against an unlawful detainer or eviction action in court, while those protections were in place, they do not prevent a landlord from filing an eviction lawsuit or an unlawful detainer in court against a tenant. So just because those protections were in place doesn't mean a landlord couldn't still go to court and file the lawsuit. But what that does mean is that the tenant has an affirmative defense should a landlord try and sue in court for past due amounts under those protections. If a tenant does receive an eviction notice, we encourage them always to not ignore these notices and to seek legal assistance immediately in responding to any eviction or unlawful detainer action filed by a landlord. These matters are very time sensitive. There's only a certain amount of days that a tenant has to respond to an unlawful detainer. So we want to be sure and get them help as soon as possible so that they can file a response or an answer to that unlawful detainer. We work with Stay Housed LA. They're our partner agency. They provide limited free legal representation. They can be reached at 888-694-0040, and they can provide assistance in helping tenants understand their rights and to see if a tenant does qualify for free legal assistance. I should mention that there are some protections that continue to be in place for folks that were displaced due to the wildfires. If a tenant is housing unauthorized guests or pets, that were displaced due to the wildfires, a tenant cannot be evicted for doing that. And those protections are in place through May 31st of 2026. Going back, if a tenant does receive a notice or an unlawful detainer, we encourage them not only to contact Stay Housed LA for legal assistance, but they can also call our department and we can provide general counseling as to what the eviction process is and what that means and some of those related details. We also have a dedicated website for landlords and tenants. That is rent.lacounty.gov. I want to talk a little bit about habitability issues. We've seen from just the past experience and cases and inquiries that we're receiving that we have folks that have situations where their units may not be livable or habitable, as it's termed in California law. Just a little bit about tenants' rights and their rights to a habitable and safe unit. A tenant has the right to live in a home that is considered safe and in a livable and habitable condition. But tenants' rights may depend on certain factors, and that's why we have to look at every situation on a case-by-case basis, because even though on the face of it, it may look like someone is experiencing something similar, there may be some details that are different. So we want to look at the severity of the damage. Was the unit fully destroyed or partially destroyed, or is it still standing? We would look at where a person lives. That would determine jurisdiction, and that would also determine the applicability of local, county, or state rent control restrictions. We would also want to know the terms of a tenant's lease. Oftentimes, there's a clause in a lease agreement that states that if there's a natural disaster, the tenancy is automatically terminated. So we'd need to look at that. So there are some variables that would determine what a tenant's rights are exactly. So if a tenant's rental unit has ash, soot, or smoke damage, especially in the HVAC or air conditioning system, and it is not considered in habitable condition, the landlord may be required to make repairs before a tenant can go back into that unit. A tenant should ask for repairs as soon as possible in writing. The landlord is allowed a reasonable time to make repairs. Landlords are required to repair the rental unit, both the interior and exterior, and any appliances that were included in the original lease. Landlords do not have responsibility for paying for a tenant's personal belongings that were damaged as a result of the fire. That is something that is typically covered under renter's insurance if a tenant does have renter's insurance. Otherwise, the tenant will have to pay out of pocket for those losses. A tenant may have the right to pay reduced rent or no rent, depending on how bad the issues are in their rental unit. But we do provide a caveat. If a tenant is going to withhold rent for any reason, the landlord can still file a eviction lawsuit in court for non-payment of rent. But it would be at the trial or the hearing where the tenant would say, raise their defense as to why they weren't paying the rent or paying the full rent due to habitability issues. To be clear, DCBA does not enforce habitability, but there are other county agencies that do. If a renter believes their unit is uninhabitable, tenants can file complaints and request inspections through the LA County Department of Public Works or the LA County Department of Public Health. For units that are rent stabilized under local, county, or state rent control regulations, those regulations still apply. So that's why it's important for us to verify the jurisdiction of the property that a tenant is renting so we can determine which rules apply, and if there is rent control, which rent control rules apply. DCBA does oversee and enforce the county's rent stabilization ordinance, which does apply to the unincorporated parts of LA County. So those are areas outside the 88 incorporated cities in Los Angeles. If a tenant has been temporarily displaced due to needed repairs, they may be entitled to relocation under the county's rent control laws. The landlord may only evict a tenant for a just cause reason, meaning the tenant does something wrong, like not paying their rent. Um, but um, but the landlord may still have to pay relocation when a tenant is being evicted for a no-fault reason. If a tenant lives in a rent-stabilized unit that is uninhabitable, then they would be considered receiving reduced housing services, uh, or that could be viewed as an invalid rent increase. So they may be entitled to some kind of rent adjustment. We would want those tenants to reach out to my department, again, DCBA, to learn more about their rights. Lastly, I just want to mention something that's coming up on the horizon. This is the Emergency Rent Relief Program. On September 16th, the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors approved the creation of a new rent relief program. This is to support both renters and landlords that have been impacted by the January wildfires, as well as households facing emergency economic hardship. The board established the program to stabilize housing for families and small landlords during this time of crisis and to help prevent displacement and strengthen community resilience. DCBA has been directed to design and launch this rent relief program within 90 days. Our staff is currently developing program details, and more information will be announced in the coming months. So please stay tuned for that. And that completes today's update from DCBA. Thank you again for your time.
Good evening. I'm here to provide an update from the fire department in our component of the process for the rebuilding and approval of plans in the Altadena area. The fire department is just one of 4 permitting agencies that's involved in this process. In an overall standpoint, we're looking for a set of architectural site plans, floor plans, and elevation plans to get the process starting through the building and safety department. The fire department is downstream in the unified permitting process, and we have 3 main components of what we're looking for to help facilitate the rapid approval of your plan so you can start your rebuilding process. The fire department main focus is our water and access. Water is the fire flow availability through the fire hydrants that are owned by the water departments. We have streamlined that process with the water departments, so the fire department will be handling that component process for all residential rebuilds unless your house is greater than 3,600 square feet or you're multi-residential or a commercial property, and we will have to handle those one-on-one. This streamlined process will eliminate your going back and forth with the water departments, and there will be no fees charged for that process. You will need to go to the water departments for the will serve letter. The second component is the fire sprinklers, which are a requirement of the state fire code. Those fire sprinkler plans have 3 components that we're looking for. We're looking for a site plan with the connection to the water department. We're looking for a piping plan, and we're looking for section views to show the full-on elevation of that structure. The third component of what we're looking for is a fuel modification plan if you are located in the very high fire hazard severity zones. Those zones are clearly identified on the website recovery.lacounty.gov, so you can determine whether you're in that zone or not. If you need a fuel modification plan, there are several components to that plan that are necessary. We would need to know what you're planting, where you're planting it, and how you're watering it. These plans do not require a design professional such as a landscape architect, but you can use them if you want to. For the homeowner to be as informed as possible, it's best to have the design professional include the homeowner as a contact information in the Epic LA profile so the homeowner is aware of all the communications between the design professionals and the permitting departments. That way they have timely and accurate information on the status of their plans, and they can follow up with their design professional with any questions that they may have. The entire fire department process is here to help facilitate your rebuilding in a fast and efficient manner. Once plans are submitted to us, we want to review the plans in 10 days or less. If it's a resubmittal with corrections, we will review those plans in 5 days or less. To reach the fire department, you can reach us at 626-320-1856. And many of our details that are required for these building plans and their submittals can be seen at recovery.lacounty.gov. I hope this answers questions that you may have or your design professional may have as it relates to the fire department component of the plan review process. Thank you for your time this evening.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to provide a permit progress update. My name is Kira Barnett, and I'm Assistant Deputy Director at LA County Public Works, overseeing the newly formed Recovery Division.
And I'm Charlene Contreras, Branch Director at LA County Public Health.
All right, so for a permit progress update, 1,931 rebuild applications have been received by LA County in the Eaton fire area as of last Friday. Planning has cleared 1,495 zoning reviews. 1,469 projects have submitted full building plans and advanced into the building review stage. Including all permit types, 329 parcels have active permits. And on those parcels, a total of 472 structure permits have been issued, including 357 new residential units. 154 additional plans have been approved and are pending submittal of clearances or the applicant pulling permits. The average number of days from initial submittal to permit issuance is 78 days for new residential projects, which includes the time it takes your design team to prepare and submit the structural and energy design of your home, time to respond to comments received, and for the homeowner to identify a builder and pull the permits. And if we can move to the next slide, please. Next, I would like to highlight a recent report that we've received about some false information that we've heard is being shared in the community. We've received notice that plumbers may have been telling residents of Altadena that their water is contaminated and they must replace all service lines and internal plumbing. I want to be clear that this is not true, and the water in Altadena is safe to drink. If you have any questions or concerns about your water quality, please contact your local water district. You can find contact information for your water company on our LA County Recover site on the permit stage of the roadmap to rebuilding. Residents are also urged to report fraudulent activity to the contractor's state licensing board. And if we could go to the next slide, please. I would like to give an overview on compaction reports and when they are required for rebuilds. Soil compaction describes the weight-bearing strength of the ground. Whether it's under a foundation, a road, or a parking lot, the soil you build on must be compacted properly. Without proper compaction, soil may settle unevenly, pavement can crack, foundations might shift or crack, and pipes and utilities may become misaligned or damaged. Compaction reports are official documents prepared during construction that show whether soil or other fill materials have been properly compacted. Compaction reports usually include test results from field density tests, like gauge or tests, the location and depth of where each test was taken, required compaction standards, for example, 90% or 95% of maximum dry density, the actual achieved compaction compared to the requirements, and any comments or recommendations from the technician or engineer. Compaction reports need to be stamped and signed by the licensed professional in responsible charge of your project. The compaction report requirement does not trigger a need for a geotechnical engineer to be involved with your project. Your licensed civil engineer in responsible charge of your project can stamp and sign the compaction report to indicate that it meets requirements of your design. When do we ask for compaction reports? Compaction reports are required when a project requires over-excavation work or when grading work needs to be done within the limits of the footprints of the building. For example, after fire debris removal has taken place, many properties have been left with a 2 to 4 foot excavation that needs to be backfilled. The soil used to fill these excavations must be properly compacted and self-certified by your licensed design professional as adequate to support your project design. Compaction reports are a part of the inspection requirements. And to ensure there's an awareness before permits are issued, we're currently preparing a stamp to indicate on the plans that a compaction report may be required. The inspector will then ask for the compaction report during construction. And if we could go to the next slide, please, I'll turn it over to Charlene.
Hey there. I'm here today to talk about construction hours. LA County Code currently prohibits construction activity during the hours of 8 p.m. and 6:30 a.m. Monday through Saturday and prohibits construction on Sundays. The code also prohibits certain noise levels between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. Monday through Saturday or any time on Sundays or holidays. In January, Public Health was directed by the board to grant a variance allowing construction noise from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., including Sundays and holidays. Next slide, please. There is an additional opportunity now to expand the variance further to support construction efforts. Public Health is seeking feedback from you to determine if you would support extending work hours within the burn area with clear noise level standards to minimize impacts and ensure a predictable work schedule. Some considerations are to allow for construction 7 days a week and on holidays, and extending work hours to allow for limited noise to occur earlier in the morning or later in the evening. We've developed a quick online survey to gauge community feedback that reflects your lived experiences and gather input on how any potential changes to construction hours may affect the community. Please scan the QR code on your screen and take the survey. The survey is anonymous. Thank you very much. This concludes our updates for today. Thank you for your time.
I got an alert on my phone at 1 in the morning that said the fire had gotten to Hill. Then it got to Lake, and I said, well, it's not going to go any further. I went to sleep. About 2 hours later, I got an alarm. I called my wife. I said, you got to get out of there. There's no word to describe it because there was fire and smoke everywhere, and we just went out east. Having watched Altadena change and now seeing this abrupt depletion of a lot of minority homeowners, it's a tragedy. My neighbor sold his lot. My other neighbors are selling their lots. This is home. This is where I live. I've lived here since I was 12 years old. I don't want to live anywhere else, and we'll do what it takes. This home will stay in my family for as long as the people after me have it, keep it. I got married in this house. My parents passed away in this house. We celebrated our 40th anniversary in this house. So this is more than a house. This is where the Dysons live, and this is where they'll always live. My wife and I had really serious conversations about should we stay or go. But our roots are here, our friends are here. As long as the roots are here, this is where you stay. My mother planted that cactus when I was 12 years old, and it was just a little one. When the house burnt down and I came, I stood in front of the ashes, and it was terrible. One of my best friends showed up with a painting his daughter had drawn of what our house looked like. And I looked at that painting and I said, we're going to get this house back. They worked 7 days a week to put this up. I've never seen a house get, put up like this in 4 weeks. These guys, they care about it as much as my home, as I care about it. I noticed on the website for LA County, the permitting process was pretty short. When I applied, it was running at 55 days, business days. We got ours in 34 business days because we pushed really hard. By putting the one-stop permit center in Altadena, LA County streamlined the process. You go to one place. So you literally walk in and go, I need my soil tested, I need my planning approved, I need to pull permits, I need power dropped here, and you didn't have to go anywhere else. You just literally go to one place. When you have things to follow up on and you're not sure, having it in one place, they're able to reach across the table and ask somebody else, hey, can you help this person? And so that was crazy helpful. It's not easy for me to keep the house. Nothing is easy, but if it's worthwhile, the hard work is worth it. And so you just have to commit to the process and put in the work, and God willing, you'll get the outcome you want. That's what I'm hoping for. One of the great things the county did was let us enlarge by 10% or 200 square feet. So, I got the house, it was smaller, cramped, and now we've got, oh wow, it's a little big, it's much bigger. So this is the garage where we'll both be able to park. This is the hallway, and it comes into the master bedroom. This is my wife's closet, which I won't get to go in. That's the master bath. We didn't have one of those. Well, we had one, but it was really small. And I gotta figure out where to put the TV, but it'll probably go on this wall. And then this is a beautiful window that I get to look out over Altadena as it comes back to life. And that's the ADU. The county allowing us to build an ADU on the property is huge because it gives my sister a place to stay. And one day when I retire and I don't have to pay this mortgage, I will be living there and someone else will be paying for this house. So I'm looking forward to that because I want to retire someday. If there's some good coming out of the fire, I've got a brand new house that meets all the new codes. I've got a place for my family. I've got a front porch, and I got a killer place for the barbecue pit when that gets ready. So we've got stuff to look forward to.